the work we do is really hard for people because we aren't going to alleviate your anxiety fast. We were never meant to do life alone. Like, we just weren't. Life was not built to be done alone. Get a community. You know, that's become lacking so much in society and culture. You can't hold everything. You got to be willing to let go. If this is an important thing to start becoming self-aware and do this internal work, what do you need to let go? Hey, what's up, guys? I want to welcome you to episode 32 of the New Rules Podcast, the Magic Johnson Podcast. The Magic Johnson, maybe one of the argument right now, is he the greatest point guard of all time? I don't know. But anyway, it's the Magic Johnson episode, so you know it's going to be special. And here's what we did. A lot of times we get going on these podcasts on really good topics, and we just kind of free flow and just go. And so last week we talked about hacking your life, and that was part one, but it was so good that we had part two. And so today you're going to be hearing part two of the conversation on hacking your life.
When I think about moments like that for me, it starts to feel like life is happening at you.
Yep.
And you start to disengage a little bit. Yep. It's like you're just flowing with what's coming at you, and then you're not present.
Yep.
And then the day ends and you can't even recount what just happened.
Yep.
When you did have a ton of great things and some horrible stuff too. So, and I know it's taken a lot of work, but can you share a little bit about how you have learned to remain present?
Yeah, let me just be this. I'm really in process. I actually was meeting with somebody I'm working with today for lunch, and I was talking to him about this. You know, he's a young man. He's a really, really great athlete. He's a really good leader. I think he's got a lot of potential. And as I was working with him, we started talking, and he asked me about this, literally the same question: how do you learn to be present? And I kind of told him, I was like, man, it started with me just doing small little things. Like when I was watching a TV show, like not looking at my phone, and not on every TV show. That I was say, okay, I'm just for this one episode, I'm not going to look at my phone. Because what that's teaching my brain is just like actual like mental discipline, like brain discipline, mind discipline, to be in there and stay present in the moment, right? I was telling him I play NBA 2K. Normally I would listen to an audio book or a podcast because I'm just playing a video game.
On 3,500 speed.
I stopped doing that because I was like, man, not because it's wrong, but I also was sitting there, I'm like, man, this is my one time that where I can just kind of like, you know, in a way that's not like where I can kind of like disconnect a little bit and not have to worry. It's the one thing where there's no pressure. I'm just playing it. I'm just like enjoyment. But I'm like, I was like, no, my time's got to be efficient. I got to learn something. No, it's just enjoyment. So I just sit there and I do that. So that's a small little tiny thing that doesn't seem like, how would that help you go through that? Because it actually is teaching you like mind and like this mind discipline. Meditation, silent solitude. That's been one way. Because again, even though it's not directly in the moment of like having to pray for somebody who's passing away or a high moment with a client, what it's teaching, can I learn and be able to tap in when I need to get my mind to lock in? And you're talking about a guy who, man, I'm diagnosed with with clinical ADHD. So it's even harder for me. But I've had to really work at it to try to do that, to try to be present in doing my process, right? And so those are like little practical ways that you can actually start doing it. Maybe when you're driving when I'm driving to work, man, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive to work. And what I'm going to do is like, man, I'm not going to listen or say anything or take any phone calls. You know, maybe if you're doing that, man, all you're going to do is just, man, you're going to listen to music and try to really listen. Something simple, man. You like music. Okay, cool. Just really listen, but don't try to like, okay, I'm listening. And then, okay, man, as I'm driving, I'm scrolling as well. I'm thinking about what's going on. Man, when I get to the job, no, I'm going to try to be right there and listen. Try to hear the beats, but try to hear like the layers of the beat, the lyrics, try to process what's being said. All those things are like simple things you do every day. I think it actually help you learn how to actually have these types of things. So when the moment does come, you can tap in and actually do that. So now as far as practice, like in those moments yesterday, it was just, man, I was like, okay, it's funny. I finished that meeting. I had another one. And then when my wife texted me, I actually was like, okay, I'm going home. And I finally said, I'm like, okay, I haven't eaten all day. So what I was going to do is just drive there. But I was like, no, I really need to eat because I'm doing intermittent fasting. I really need to eat before 8 o'clock. I know I can kind of power through and go do that, but my body was telling me what it needed. So I stopped and says, no, I'm going to go eat first, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a break. I literally went and played like a half of NBA 2K, and then I went over there, and then I spent time with them and did that, and then I went to go speak. And it was just, but in that moment, I kind of was like trying to be present and not letting the moment speed me up. You know, sometimes, yes, there's emergencies, you have to do that. But I talked to my mother-in-law, I'm like, hey, do you want me to come? Like, you know, how quick do you want me to come? She's like, no, it's totally fine. You can come here. So I did that, and I was able to do that. But I was able to listen to what my body was saying a lot and to be able to respond that way. So it allowed me to be present in those moments. But then when I was on my way over here to be on this panel, I was like, man, I'm going to get these questions. So I'm like, okay, what am I thinking about? How am I going to be dialed in right now in this moment? And so I was just right there. Like, I'm just going to answer these questions right now, be here, and listen really intently to what people are saying. So,
do you think that everyone has the capacity to eventually reach that level of processing speed of emotional information?
I don't know. And here's why. I say this, and I hope it does not come off in any way like a douche. Like, I really don't want me to come off in any way wrong. But talking to a few people who actually are like, therapists and people who do this stuff, I'm starting to realize I have a really high capacity to do that. Which I never thought. I was like, oh, no, everybody. I mean, if you do it. But I'm starting to realize not everybody does that. So I don't know yet. I don't know if it's something everybody can learn to process at that speed or that pace to do that. I think maybe, but, it's kind of like, man, is everybody going to play at the level? And please hear me when I say this. I'm not saying I'm LeBron James in this kind of thing, but like.
Yeah, but you are.
But like,
I'll say it.
But everybody's not like LeBron James. Like LeBron James, like I don't care. Like, listen, like I've said it before on this podcast, and I like played against Michael Jordan. I looked at him and was like, yeah, and I worked hard. Like I worked my butt off at basketball. I'm like, yeah, I'll never be that good. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I think, some capacity. So I don't know. I think over time, a little bit more time, I'll be able to see if that can actually happen. But do I think you can actually grow in it? And really kind of max your lid out of whatever that is and be better and live a good, full life to where you're able to give wisdom and impact and help, the places and spaces you inhabit 100%.
Yeah. The reason why I asked that is because I was just thinking through, because I know that you do that at a pretty crazy speed. And so I'm thinking through in a let's say somebody else was going through a situation like that.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, they're practically sitting on their bed like, I don't know. Like, it's going to take me what maybe took you 30 minutes. It's going to take me 4 hours to really come to terms with everything that just happened. Yep. And it's like, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you do that in a world where, the next day you have to show up for work? You might not have that much control over your work schedule. Yep. And then at the end of the day, like, you have to go work out or you have like things with your friends. Like, how does somebody, especially because, you have to start somewhere. And most people's starting point, almost everyone's starting point is not going to be where you are currently at because you didn't even start there.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess, what do you do in those moments?
I kind of throw it back to you because I know that that's something that you have had to work through. And I when I say throw it back to you, I think that one of the things that I know that you did was that you prioritized it. So you mentioned earlier, like, man, yeah, you can't control your work schedule, but that when you were working through some of your process early on in therapy, I know that there were very clear choices you made. There were very clear choices that you made. There were, like, for example, when you first started going, you were doing some deep dives into stuff, and you would and you would go to therapy, and then, man, you would try to come back to work. And it was really difficult. And you were trying to grind through it. And then finally I remember telling like, no, it's okay. Like when we first started talked about it, like, yeah, it's okay. Go home, take a nap. Like, I know you're going to get your work done. But like you made it. And yeah, again, yes, I was willing to let you do that. But beyond that, you still had to go do that because what you could have done is says, nope, I'm going to grind this out. I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go do this. You made choices. I think that sacrifice determines how serious you are. I believe getting this ability to learn how to internally process is so critical to becoming self-aware and to resilient, to becoming authentic, so that if it's an actual real thing that you're really like that's something you feel like you're supposed to do, then you have to sacrifice for it. So you know what that means, man. Even though, man, you love working out 5 or 6 days a week, maybe it's only 3 or 4 days a week. You know what? There may be an impact. I'm not talking about health, like, you know, something that's negative, but I'm saying, man, your body may not look as good as it could if you worked out 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. Still looks good, but not as good as it would 6 days a week. That's a sacrifice because what you're doing some internal work, whatever that may be. It may be, man, you know what, man, I can't really watch shows. I've got to come home and, man, like, honestly, be able to sit there and process. When I come home, man, I may not scroll. Like, those are all the things I think that we can find time and room to do it. It's just we have to make those conscious choices. I don't know what you would add to that.
Yeah, I think that when those moments start to play out, somebody who has, you know, a day like you did yesterday, a lot of dreams, a lot of nightmares, and they don't have a higher processing speed, maybe because they don't have the capacity, or maybe because they're in the process of kind of figuring out what that looks like for them. And I think that when it comes down to it, that second day where somebody might need, you know what, like tomorrow, I need to just go home, or I need to wake up, 4 hours earlier before work instead of and just sit here thinking, rather than going to the gym in the morning or after work. I'm not going to go to my friend's house to hang, or I'm not going to go work out. Certain things like that, where they have that option, they don't choose it because one option is less painful than the other. Yep. And so they just decide to do the other thing, especially if the other thing seems good.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to go work out. Working out relieves stress, which it does. Like it definitely does. And this is very nuanced. We're not saying, cut working out of your schedule, like do it. But you have to know yourself enough to know, are you using it as a cop out and to avoid pain, even if because you might be at the point where like working out is not going to relieve all of your stress. You have so much in the closet that you need to do something so much, like you need to emotionally work out. And that needs to be your priority for the time. And like you said, maybe cut down working out, to 3 times a week or hanging out with your friends a little bit less. The thing that always got me and kind of kept me tight to that is if I don't do this work, what's the point? Like, what's the depth in why am I hanging out with my friends? Like, what's the depth in my relationships? Because there's no depth in me. Yeah. Because I have no room to really share with them or can really hold anything for them because I can't even process my own dreams, my own nightmares. Wow. So what is our relationship even?
Yeah. That's really good. Keep going, sorry.
And the problem is that most people don't think that way. Most people think they choose I'm going to hang out with my friends, and then things end up being very surface level. And then it's 20 years down the line and you're wondering to yourself, like, what is we see this all the time. Like, we work with many executives everywhere. And I'm always so floored and so grateful for the path that I have been encouraged and challenged to take. Because we see people, 60s, and they're like, I have everything. I have no idea what I want. Yeah. Like I don't know. I don't know what to do. And there's so many things I could do, but nothing feels the same because I have nothing to chase anymore. And chasing something was all I was.
Wow. No, I think that is really good insight. Because I think that you are planting seeds, like you're planting seeds today, like for your better tomorrow. And I think that's what you've made decisions to do. And a better tomorrow, listen, you're not saying, hey, I've watched you plant seeds for, man, you want to invest and give your time. We first started doing this consulting firm where there was no promises, there was no nothing. And man, you were working way more hours than actually, then you were working way more hours. And you weren't even compensated at the level that, the hours you were working, but you took a risk. And now. Well,
I'm going to stop you there. Okay. Because I get the work that we do with clients for free.
Yeah.
That people pay thousands of dollars for. Yeah. I get that for free every single day.
And that's a good, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think Yeah, and let's just kind of go there really quick, and I'll come back. I think what Bri just said, and I hope a lot of you guys can like pin this and understand. Everything is not monetary. It's not monetary. I was thinking about this. I have Coach Leonard Hamilton, legendary basketball coach, one of the last kind of like black basketball patriarchs. He's head coach at Florida State. Coach Ham's a mentor of mine. I've served the Florida State basketball team. I've been the character coach for them. I'm there whenever there's something that, they need help with things, whatever. I've been there. And sometimes, you're like, man, you can feel like your time, you're in it, man, am I appreciated, whatever. But what I started to realize is that, dude, like, I spend time with Coach where I can go in his office whenever, I'm calling whenever. And this is a guy who's been wildly successful. He was a pioneer. He wrote new rules when no one, I remember one point in time, him and my father, they were like 10 or 15 black head basketball coaches at 320 some odd Division I coaches. These two pioneered. And I would just sit in his office. I was asking questions. I just got to see how he built something. And a lot of stuff I learned just watching. And so going back to, I'm like, no, man, I got $1 million worth of game just being around. And so I think sometimes that this is not what we were talking about today, but I think that's such a good point that you make, that I think, not everything's about money. And sometimes, man, it's better to take less money when you can get greater experience. It really is true, because it's going to make you more money in the future. Those hours I spent sacrificing in areas where I didn't get paid to the level I was supposed to be paid at, man, I learned so much from it that now I'm actually getting paid at the level I should get paid at, but I actually am getting paid that because I got something to say and I've got some things to give because I learned those deals. Yeah, now going back to what we're talking about, I think that you're planting seeds for a better tomorrow when it comes relationally. And I think we must all make decisions of what we want. And you got to just be willing to sit in there and do whatever the work is that you need to do. Like today, I had a very long Sunday. And then Monday, as I just talked about today, this day's Tuesday. Monday, what I explained earlier, was a very long day. Mm-hmm. I woke up this morning and kind of was going. And today is a day that I spent a lot of time doing a lot of speaking prep. And so I got going, I was doing it, but I could really feel it in my body of man, my body, I didn't sleep great last night. So what I did was that I'm like, yeah, I left. I had a lunch. They're doing a little mentor thing with someone. And then after I was kind of like, yeah, I'm just not going to come back and do this. Now, because of being able to be to running the organization, I can kind of pick and choose my schedule, right? But you may not be able to do that. But what you can do is, listen, when you get off work, man, those times are free for you. You may have to grind it out. You may have to be there from 9 to 5 or whatever. But after that, man, you can make whatever choices you can make to do whatever you need to do to help yourself to get back on track. So I know as soon as we're done recording this podcast, one thing that's been really helpful for me is mindfulness and meditation, and then doing cold plunge. Literally physically doing cold plunge helps reset my body. I don't know why. It just really does. It makes me feel better. So once I'm done here, because I can still feel it in my body a little bit, I'm going to go and I'm going to go do that because I know that's what I need. Now, what I could do is say, no, I didn't get all my speaking stuff done. I got to go do this, Yo, I'm going to go do this, do the cold plunge, probably go sit in a sauna, finish doing that, and then I'm going to probably get back, probably get back to doing some of the work I need to do. But I think when you're going through your process, you must be willing to make this a priority and give yourself room to do it. But like we've said many times on this podcast, you can't hold everything. You got to be willing to let go. If this is an important thing to start becoming self-aware and do this internal work, what do you need to let go? What are the things you need to let go? And remember, you're maybe only letting go for a season. Those workouts, man, those time with your friends, those happy hours that you go to, whatever. We're not saying that's that's the end for the rest of your life. We're just saying, man, that may be a 6-month thing, a 3-month thing, a year-long thing, 2-month thing. Who knows? But a willingness to say, I'm doing this. I'm letting go of one thing to grab the next thing.
Can we talk about the other big elephant in the room, which is the fact that people want to do it by themselves?
Dude, yes. Listen, go ahead. Because
and what made me think of that is because I was like, well, at the same time, I also have the luxury of working with my community. Like I work with my best friends, like, and people who are genuinely my family. Like, we don't just say that. I know that sometimes that can be like a red flag in like a working space. You're like, oh, if you say you're a family, I'm not gonna.
That's just code for the when
overworked and underpaid.
Yeah, we got the pizza party.
Right? Yeah. so many situations I want to say, but I won't. But like, I do have that luxury. Like, I spend all of my work day with some of my best friends, and it's not that, you know, we're always talking about those kinds of things, but I do have a very thick sense of community. And so that was one of the other reasons why it's like I can go home and I know that that's the time that I need to just be by myself. And I just need to process through these things on my own, just because I spent an entire day kind of talking about these topics or being around my friends and being around a community. And I think that there's a way to obviously fit that in, whether you work with your friends or whether you don't. But people try to do it by themselves too frequently. And that's a lot of the reasons why they want to hack, is because they don't want to go through something, much less they don't want to go through something with somebody else.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Listen, I am such a believer in this. We were never meant to do life alone. Like, we just weren't. Life was not built to be done alone. I can say that I have, like, you know, this ability to process and whatever, all this stuff. Well, I would have never known like it was actually a gift if it wasn't for someone. Having someone actually help me to learn it, to realize who I was, to help me unravel the bad habits, bad thoughts, whatever. Like, I had someone. I've got really good friends who are some of my greatest like encouragers, and also some of my biggest challengers. And I'm really thankful. Like, I'm really thankful for them. I'm thankful because they're different than I am. And at times it can be annoying. And I know I can be annoying to them. But we've got longevity with each other. And we've fought through some things together. And so now we're better because of it. But I know this, that they have walked with me through. You know, I know that if I call if something happened or if I needed something, I know that I probably have at least, and most people say if you die with like a handful, if you count on like one hand amount of good friends, like you live a full life, like I can honestly tell you right now, like I could probably on both hands and maybe an extra hand, if something hit the fan, that I could probably call 10 to 15 people who would instantly get on a plane for me. And
why do you think that is?
I think it's because both sides value relationship, and both sides have invested with no return, and both sides have invested at times more than the other has invested in certain seasons. I can say that that's one of the things that I feel like one of the things I've done well in my life is invested in people with no expectation of any return in it, because it's just what's the right thing to do, and because I wanted to do it and I wanted to help. And I think that because of that, when you do that, people, man, they're willing to do, take care of it. And I've had people who've done that for me, where they've invested into me with no sense of getting anything. I really couldn't benefit them, and they invested into my life. And man, I'll do anything for them. I think back to my high school coach. I think back to, I think about Dr. Mike Zoda. I think about my three friends. I think about, I have more, but I think about Seth, Adam, and Clayton. I think about Corey. I think about Pete. I mean, these are all these guys who, man, we just have done life together for a long time, and we are willing to do some things, where we've invested. So I think that's why both sides are willing to do that. But man, I wouldn't be who I was. And then on top of that, having such a committed wife, I wouldn't be who I was if it wasn't for that. And so I want to encourage you, get a community. That's become lacking so much in society and culture, because everything has become such, tech driven, that we forget to get face to face with people. So that is why I'm such a believer in like church. And again, I know there's so many horror stories and bad things about church, whatever. But let me tell you this, man. Like, listen, I just believe in church community. Church community, I always say it this way: spiritual family, man. It saved my life. It made me, and I am super grateful for it. So it may not be for you if you're listening to this pod, man. Maybe it's not, religion for you, but maybe for you, it's getting into, man, some type of local volunteerism, community. Maybe it's joining young professional groups. It's joining maybe an affinity group at your workplace. Get your community. Get you some people who you can actually walk through some processes with. 'Cause I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, and I think when you're with this whole topic being about hacks for life and avoiding pain, the problem is that when you actually try to embrace that process, if you don't have people around you to guide you and lead you that you trust when you feel like the whole world is ending, things can get so much darker than what they probably already are. And so you need to have people that you really do trust and that love you who are going to guide you when you have no idea how to guide yourself, because you start to feel like you have no idea what you're doing. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? All the wires start to cross, and you need to have people who can help kind of clear that up with you that you trust. Otherwise, you're always going to, be pointing the finger at somebody to stay in the pit. Yeah.
And here's what happens. Sometimes you need somebody to sit in. Sometimes you need somebody to sit in the pit with you, and that's it. They just need to sit there with you. Sometimes, you know what? You need somebody to actually pull you out of it. Sometimes somebody's like, hey, nope, I'm going to sit with you, but I got to pull you out, and they're going to pull you out. Sometimes you put yourself in the pit, and they got to tell you, hey, you did this, and they got to be able to be honest, and you have to be willing to receive that. When you're not in the pit and you're doing good, you need those friends who you call, who, man, it's like you win. I always tell people, do you got any friends who celebrate you like you just won a championship? If you ever watch a team win a championship, the way their excitement, their hugs, like that. Do you have any friends that when you win, they're celebrating you like that? That is one of the things I can tell you, man, when to be able to call friends when you do something well and not feel like you have to preface what you're about to say, because, man, they're so into themselves that, all right, if I say this, then, man, I'm going to have to, I don't want to be too hyped because it feels like I'm rubbing something in, or, man, I'm going to have to, they're going to somehow turn this on how, man, it's great for you, but their day sucked. You're like, so I mean, there's people I have like that. But, man, my really good friends, dude, they do. We celebrate like it's a championship. You know what I'm saying? But here's what we also do. We mourn. We mourn together like it's our family. So when our friends are going through stuff with our children, and our children may not be doing great, dude, like our hearts break for each other like it's our kids. And we're willing to do whatever to help them through that process. But we also celebrate each other like we won. You know what I'm saying? I always tell when my friends win, like we win. Like my good friend in Boston just had a kind of a crazy story where he had he's a pastor and he had a church, like literally like an older church, give him a church. Again, and I'm talking about millions of dollars they probably gave him a church.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's an older church. And instead of this older church selling it and making money, and now it's going to turn into like a freaking Whole Foods. Like they continue to allow it to move forward. And dude, that's how I tell people, yeah, man, we got a, it's like this, like we got a church. You know what I'm saying? Like we got one.
Right.
I got a church in Boston. Like, because why? Because, man, like I celebrate that because his win, it really is we got. His win is my win and vice versa. And we celebrate in those things. So I tell people, man, if you want to get through your process, you got to get people like that in your life.
Well, can you tell me what kind of pain you think a lot of our clients avoid? Kind of bringing this a little bit more to a corporate scale. Yeah,
I think what people avoid right now in corporate America, I think they're avoiding anxiety. They're avoiding uncomfortable situations. They are avoiding wanting to face themselves in the mirror of what they don't do well as leaders. I think some people in the workforce don't want to deal with the reality that maybe you're not as good as you think you are. It's not because somebody's holding you back or they're not being inclusive. Times that's the case. Sometimes you just suck and there's no way around that and you're not good enough. And I think people don't want to face that. And I don't think people want to face reality of where they are. That's probably the best way to say it. We don't want to face reality. And because we don't want to face reality and be self-aware of that, what we will do is continue to just either throw money at something, create other programs. That is why the work we do is really hard for people, because we aren't going to alleviate your anxiety fast. Alleviating anxiety fast is come in, do a 12-week, or do a 3-week, do some type of, workshop for a day, come in and, and get everybody straightened out. And now everybody for a moment feels better because they say, hey, well, we went through this culture thing. We sat with this person. We did whatever. And honestly, we don't do that. So it makes them really uncomfortable because we make them sit in there, because we are not about the instant relieving of your anxiety. We're actually about the long-term, success and your self-discovery and your own ability to kind of become really, really an authentic company. So I think because listen, corporations are made up of people. So if we're unaware and pain avoidant as a people, then the people who make up the company's going to be pain avoided and do whatever. And so I think that's where it's at. I think the symptoms we see in people are the same symptoms that we actually see in corporations, because people make corporations up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to highlight that because I know we've been talking a little bit about the younger generation, which is obviously important to leaders because that's who you're leading. But also we really believe that most leaders are ill-equipped to even lead in these circumstances because of the ways that we ourselves also avoid pain and have become blinded to what it is that we're seeing in the world.
No, because let me tell you this. Right now, you have 56-year-olds who are sitting in C-suites, who work their way up the ladder, who now are leading a workforce, and they don't want to change. They don't want to lean in. I can't tell you how many older gentlemen will be sitting in the corporate office and they'll just be, on their high horse about hard work and meritocracy and all that shit that just drives me nuts, because I'm like, dude, because a lot of times I'm just like, stop, man. Like, somebody helped you. Don't that thing that people say is my hard work and I pull myself up. Stop. Somebody helped you. Somebody at some point saw something in you. Doesn't mean you didn't work hard, but also don't make it that somebody didn't help you. That it was just all by you, like you were freaking Superman and you just did everything on yourself. It's stupid. But they don't want to change because you know what? They're in their ways. And what they don't want to face is that corporate leadership and organizational structures are changing because people are changing. So you don't want to learn a new operating system. It's painful. It's painful to be the older guy in there. And now all of a sudden people are talking about empathy and talking about, being emotionally aware. And what do? The same people don't want to deal with having to change. So now we just we land blast people, and we just kind of now demonize. Oh, if you talk about emotional intelligence, if you talk about being empathetic, if you talk about any of those types of things, oh, you don't care about profit. You don't care about growing the company. You just want to feel good. You just want, we're all about inclusion, and that's not doing anything, all this stuff. And that's just a very lazy place to be. It's not about that. I actually think that because numbers show it, because the same people who say facts over feelings, let me just give you facts. People who have higher EQs make more money. Companies that have more people with higher EQs make more money. And so if that's fact. So if it's not about your feelings, then you need to change and become more emotionally aware. You need to become more emotionally intelligent. You need to become more of an authentic leader so that you can actually help your company make more money. The market has changed, so you need to change. Or if you don't want to change, just go work for other people who want to stay the same with you. And in 10 or 15 years,
we know some places.
Yeah, 10 or 15 years, you'll retire and you'll be out of the workforce. You'll die off, and it's fine. And the next generation, and you know what's going to happen? The world's still going to move forward without you. That's why I think that's why those who are older, they think the world's we think the world's going to blow up because, we don't have these things. I'm like, dude, listen, the world's going to continue to go. They said that about my generation. Gen X came, we had MTV, we had Nintendo, we had all this stuff, and people thought, oh man, that, you know, we got rap, you know, gangster rap came in. It was like you would have thought we were all going to literally die and the world was over. And you know what? We have seen a thriving market, probably more than even in their generation they saw. Dude, the kids are, I always say this, the kids are going to be okay. Our job is to help them. So, well, hey guys, I hope today was helpful for you. I know we did a deeper dive into some things today. What I want to encourage you with is this. Here's why we talk, and I love talking about the next generation. I hope that you know that why we focus on Gen Z and millennials is not to crap on that generation, but it's actually the belief that I have in that generation. So a lot of times I don't really talk a lot to Gen X and baby boomers because I'll be personally honest with you, I don't care enough. I care about the generation that's coming up because they are the future. They are the workforce. And I don't want to be the older guy who just tells you everything that you're doing wrong. But what I also want to do, I want to be the uncle who's always going to tell you the right thing. Like I want to tell you and I'm going to challenge you because it's actually out of real love to be able to do that. So I hope you can take something, you can apply it. Man, DM us if you have any questions. And until next time, keep writing new rules.